John Hook with your Fox 10 Facebook News Update. Actor and comedian Bill Cosby charged with sexual assault. This is the first criminal case against Cosby after several allegations of sexual assault. This specific charge in connection with an incident at his home in early 2004. The TV star acknowledged under oath that he had sexual contact with the woman, but says it was consensual. Ethan Couch, known as the affluenza teen, and his mother will not be extradited back to the U.S. today. They got a temporary stay against the extradition in Mexico where they were captured. The teen has been sought for violating probation. Ethan was given probation instead of prison time for a drunk driving accident that killed 4 people back in 2013. An effort to recall Arizona Superintendent of Public Instruction Diane Douglas has failed. The group behind the campaign was only able to get about 40,000 signatures of the 370,000 that were required. The deadline for those signatures was today. 2 people in the hospital after a fire rips through their apartment. Flames swept through the 3 units at the complex near Rural and Apache. Both victims taken to the hospital for smoke inhalation. They are expected to be okay. Let's take a look at the weekend forecast and the 10-day forecast. We're going to see a gradual increase, a little warm up to the 70s on Sunday, and then it's going to dip back into the 50s next week. That's your Fox 10 Facebook News Update. I'm John Hook.
What were those graphics at the end? I need to revisit this. I've never seen those weather graphics before. Was that on purpose?
Both victims taken to the hospital for smoke inhalation. They are expected to be okay. Let's take a look at the weekend forecast and the 10-day forecast. We're going to see a gradual increase, a little warm up to the 70s on Sunday, and then it's going to dip back into the 50s next week. That's your Fox 10 Facebook News Update. I'm John Hook.
I think that was a mistake, and I'm delighted by it. I think that I've never seen those graphics before, so I'm not even mad. I'm impressed. I like those graphics. I don't live in Dallas anymore, but I used to, so I can appreciate them. We're going to watch some local packages first, and then we're going to jump into some national headlines. For instance, everyone, including Rand Paul, is talking about how Christie and Marco Rubio took swipes at each other today during campaign speeches, both saying that the other doesn't work very hard or show up for work was really what they both said. And Rand Paul agreed with both of them, saying neither one of you show up or work very hard. So we're going to watch those campaign speeches, but we're going to focus on some Fox 10 Phoenix news at the beginning of the show. And let's jump into that content right now. You saw John Hook talking about this a minute ago. Here is a extended version of Fox 10's coverage on Bill Cosby.
Thank you for joining us. First tonight at 6 o'clock, we have heard the accusations for over a year. Some 50 women coming forward and accusing Bill Cosby of sexual abuse and worse. Well, now that comedian facing criminal charges for the first time since all those accusations surfaced. This is video of him leaving a courthouse in Pennsylvania earlier today. This specific case, in connection with an incident at his home back in 2004, the statute of limitations had almost run out on this. The TV star acknowledged under oath he had sexual contact with the woman in this case, but he claims it was consensual. The woman says no. Her lawyers, his lawyers I should say the criminal charge is unjustified and the comedian will be exonerated. Well, today we spoke with an attorney, Brian Foster, about how this could play out for Bill Cosby. And joining us now to talk more about this, litigator Brian Foster from Snow and Wilmer. You spent a lot of time in courtrooms. Interesting case, isn't it, this Cosby case? I mean, we have a crime that allegedly occurred a long time ago, and now we're just having the trial now this next year.
The crime occurred roughly 12 years ago, and they filed the charges 1 month before they would have been banned by the statute of limitations. This is extremely unusual.
And I think a big question that I have is, we've got now almost, 50 women coming forward and saying the same kind of thing happened to them. Will any of that testimony be allowed or any of that evidence in this trial, you think?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, whether or not the trial judge is going to allow these prior bad acts to come in. The general rule is that you're charged on the facts involved in your case, not whatever you've done before this. There are exceptions, and here the exception would be this would be proving a habit or a scheme or similar conduct, and that may be enough to get it in this case.
And looking at just the facts that I'm privy to, it almost appears to be almost a date rape case in a way where he made passes at her a couple different times at his home. She went back to his home a third time, And he said, hey, take these pills, and she said, okay. It wasn't like he slipped her a Mickey or something like that. Is that going to be tough to prove as a he said, she said, or what do you think about the merits of the case?
Well, I think the merits are pretty strong for her case because, in fact, he admitted in his deposition that he had given Quaaludes to other women in the past that he wanted to have sex with. He claims that he only gave her Benadryl or some other type of prescriptive type of pill. But because of his admissions that he's done this in the past in an effort to have sex with women, I think that it's going to be really difficult for him in this situation.
Brian Foster, thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you.
Surprise, looking for information and tips after a home is vandalized overnight. You can see some of the damage. The vandals, they even set a small fire outside of this house. Steve Kraft now joins us live with the story. Steve?
Well, this happened a bit after 3 o'clock this morning. The family hears a crash, a basketball hoop tipped over and falling into the front yard. They rush outside to see damage they say was done by vandals. Here's what happened overnight at this home near Reams and Bell Roads in Surprise. Start with the tires.
They cut the tires. There's actually 3 vehicles parked here, and they got all of our tires except for that one right there.
The vandals scratched the cars, wrote the word die on the hood of one of them, bent the windshield wipers, tipped over the basketball hoop, then set a small fire. Well, this is the mattress that was set on fire last night by the vandals. That is the damage to the nearby block wall. And all this taking place right next to the side of the house. And it's not the first time the family says the vandals have struck. They sent us these photos.
Earlier this month, like I said, they had got to the side of the house and cut the screens, and they destroyed the glass tables in the back and threw some items around the yard.
What's your message to whoever is doing this?
Why? We really don't know what's going on.
The family planning to install a video system to defend their property and asking for tips to help police arrest the vandal or vandals.
If anybody has seen or heard anything, or if they've noticed anyone around the neighborhood that doesn't belong in the neighborhood, I think that helps a lot.
If you have any information, please get in touch with Surprise Police. Reporting live, Steve Kraft, Fox 10 News.
We're on the second floor.
Okay, what you need to do then is I need you to go into a bathroom or a back room, preferably a bathroom, okay? And I want you to go ahead and get some towels and wet them down.
Pretty tense time as a couple inside a Tempe apartment complex trapped inside their home. The man and woman rushed to the hospital because of smoke inhalation, and they're still in the hospital. The fire happened near McClintock and Apache around 2 a.m. The 2 occupants locked themselves in a bathroom and they realized there was no way out. Anita Roman tells us more about this.
So I was just asleep and I just heard someone knocking loudly and just came out and I saw there was fire inside.
Fulmanta Das didn't have time to grab any belongings when a fire burning in the apartment above forced him and his roommate out of their very own unit.
It was pretty high. It's like I never seen like that before in my life.
The fire so intense, the glass patio door on the second floor balcony was blown out. When crews arrived, flames were shooting out into the early morning sky, trapping the residents inside.
They had said that the fire had actually cut off their means of egress, so they were in their bedroom and they were trying to make their way out, but their access to the front door was actually blocked by fire.
Once in the bathroom, Tempe Fire says the residents called 911, staying on the phone with the operator and banging on the walls as firefighters made their way to them, taking every precaution to stay alive.
Yeah, they were able to take some towels, roll them up, and stuff them at the base of the door, and that helped save their lives.
It's like really scary, but I'm glad that everybody is out and no lives, nothing is lost.
Both residents were treated on scene and then taken to the hospital for further evaluation. With the apartment upstairs a loss, Das is counting his blessings, grateful both he and the neighbors made it out safely. Anita Roman, Fox 10 News.
The firefighters were also able to rescue 2 pet cats from that fire, and the cause is still under investigation tonight.
All right, and I see a package in my folder with a very similar name. So let's see if it's the same story or not.
First on Fox tonight, a fire traps a couple and their cats inside their apartment.
Frantic call to 911 and a patient dispatcher helped save all of them until they were rescued. Nicole Garcia now is live with the story. So tell us what happened here, Nicole.
That fire broke out about 3 o'clock in the morning at a unit here at this Tempe apartment complex. The couple inside was asleep. They woke up, but they couldn't find their way out of that second-story unit. A 911 dispatcher helped guide them through this crisis. And in that 911 call, you can hear the desperation and the fear in the couple's voices, but you could also hear the resolve in the 911 dispatcher's voice to get them out alive.
I don't think we can get out of our house.
Okay, what's going on?
A fire.
A Tempe couple woke up Wednesday morning to smoke and flames. They could see their porch on fire, but not a way out. They called 911. Brad Christmas was on the line with them, guiding them to a safe spot and instructing them on how to stay alive.
What you need to do then is I need you to go into a bathroom or a back room, preferably a bathroom, okay? And I want you to go ahead and get some towels and wet them down.
Okay, hold on, I can't breathe.
I want you to push them. I want you to take one towel, wet it real good, push it underneath the door so you can jam that area where the smoke can come through. If you have any other towels that you can use, any washcloths, hand towels, any other towels at all, I want you to take those and you have those ready. That way you can put them over your face if you need to, okay?
The couple and their 2 cats stayed inside the bathroom following Brad's instructions until firefighters knocked out the flames and rescued them. Brad remained on the line and continued to guide them even during the rescue.
Keep that towel over your face when you're on your way out, okay?
Relief, that they were both still awake, they were both still breathing fine, and that both them and their cats were going to get out of there just fine. There was definitely a moment where I exhaled.
He gives the couple credit for staying calm and listening. Brad has been a dispatcher for 4 years and says not everyone can keep it together and follow instructions during an emergency.
The fact that they were willing to listen and that they were active participants in their own rescue, that it really helped out.
The couple and their cats got out safe without any burns. The couple was treated for smoke inhalation and carbon monoxide poisoning, but they're expected to be okay. The cause of the fire is still under investigation. Reporting live in Tempe, I'm Nicole Garcia, Fox 10 News.
And speaking of stories we've covered, but I've got a different angle, or at least a different reporter, let's take a look at the other Bill Cosby package I have from Fox 10 News.
Women have come forward accusing Bill Cosby of sex crimes. But today, for the very first time, prosecutors have actually charged him with a crime. Andrew Hasman joins us live with the details on this. Andrew.
Troy, this is our first look at the mugshot of the man best known for his role as Dr. Huxtable on The Cosby Show. After months of allegations by women who say Cosby drugged them and sexually abused them, the first criminal case has now been brought against the comedian.
How do you respond to the charge? Bill Cosby arriving at a Pennsylvania courthouse for his arraignment on a sex assault charge. The legendary comedian facing the first criminal charges filed against him since dozens of women started coming forward, accusing Cosby of drugging them and sexually assaulting them.
We are here to announce today charges that have just been filed against William Henry Cosby. These charges stem from a sexual assault that took place on an evening in early 2004 at Mr. Cosby's home in Cheltenham Township, Montgomery County. Mr. Cosby is charged with aggravated indecent assault. This is a felony of the first degree.
Cosby's charges are punishable by up to 10 years in prison. Prosecutors in the case say they were able to bring the charges against him after learning information in previously sealed legal documents from a civil deposition.
The issue now is that they've gone and obtained documents where he testified under oath that he drugged her. And so that's going to be able to be used against him.
At least 52 women have come forward to publicly claim Bill Cosby sexually abused them and drugged them. According to the accusers, the alleged abuse began in the 1960s and took place as recently as 2008 in at least 8 states. Cosby acknowledged 10 years ago under oath that he did have sexual contact with the woman, Andrea Constad, but that it was consensual. Prosecutors said Cosby had made 2 previous advances toward Constad that were rejected before he allegedly drugged her.
Reopening this case was not a question. Rather, reopening this case was our duty as law enforcement officers with a sworn obligation to uphold our constitutions and to uphold the law.
And the charges are happening just days before the 12-year statute of limitations was about to run out in this case. Constand's attorney says her client welcomes the charges. The next hearing in the case is set for January 14th. I'm Andrew Hasbun, Fox 10 News.
Officers spreading their message about the dangers of random gunfire on New Year's Eve. Every year, officers hand out flyers to get the word out about Shannon's Law. It's named after 14-year-old Shannon Smith, who was hit and killed by a bullet that was randomly fired into the air back in 1999. That year, police say they got nearly 1,000 calls about shots fired in a single hour. Over the past 17 years, police say there's been an 80% drop in the amount of calls of shots fired on New Year's Eve.
Who does that and why? Who's just like randomly shooting on New Year's Eve? I'm lucky if I work up the courage to... Jude, do you do fireworks on New Year's Eve?
I do fireworks on every eve, man.
Oh, well, we're...
Is that on air?
Yes.
Holy smoke.
Oh, I think I bought some cute little fireworks, but it's a no-burn day. Am I still allowed to use fireworks on the no-burn day?
You got my permission to, but again, I'm not the authority.
Yes.
But no, I think you should have some fun with it.
We were just doing a story about how you're not allowed to randomly shoot in the air on New Year's Eve, and I was like, well, who's doing that?
Well, you know, I will say this. Sadly, there was the young lady who was killed.
Shannon, yeah.
The Shannon Law. Okay, so you know there are people that you'll hear shotguns go off. Where do those bullets go if you shoot them up in the air? You know, so I think in that sense you don't want to shoot off any artillery.
Right.
But the problem is when you shoot off firecrackers on New Year's Eve, people think it's a gun, it's a handgun or a rifle. So so a lot of people are like, whoa, I'm standing inside.
Well, I went to Walmart. I've gone to Walmart before, and I got cute little things that like
Poppers.
turn colors, but this is what I'm really excited to rock.
See, now that's the way to go.
Yeah. But I got these cute little things that you light up and they turn fun colors. And I was thinking that's going to really liven up my Instagram. That's where my objection was in the purchase of those fireworks, but otherwise, I don't have the BB gun out.
You don't have. What are you going to do exciting?
Oh, I'm going to open my Christmas presents from my boyfriend.
Yeah, that's nice. That's exciting. Yeah. On the air?
No, you don't want me to do that because I've already seen one of them and it was not that great. He made me a Donald Trump poster, like the Hope poster, like the Obama poster, but it says Nope.
Nope.
And I was like, why would you do this to me? I don't think this is funny.
That is funny. Wow. That's pretty cool. You got to open that up on news now.
I'm gonna
what do you have here now?
I'm gonna give it to Edgecombe. I'm playing some of our local packages.
No, I think that now I know where your energy comes from. Your mom.
Yeah.
Well, like you.
My mom's a crazy woman. Jude met my mom last night.
Yeah. I met Kinsey's mom last night. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Oh, she's alive.
Have you met my dad yet? Or had you met him before?
That's your
Well, that was my dad, but had you met him before?
I never met your dad, no.
He comes in sometimes too.
I think your mom, my intuitive hunch is your dad's a really nice guy, but your mom is overwhelming. Your mom overwhelms your dad.
So he's quiet.
Yeah, she overpowers the room. And he kind of goes along with it. I could see that instantly.
And now you know why I'm with Kobe.
That's it. There you go. Sigmund Freud
Yeah.
is not far off.
All right, let's jump into that forecast with our own Dave Muncy.
AccuWeather forecast with Dave Muncy on Fox 10 News.
Hi, everybody. Nice looking night out there. It's 58 degrees right now. We just have a light breeze out of the west-southwest. Temperatures 57 degrees at Cave Creek, 57 in Glendale, 55 in Mesa, 60 in Queen Creek. Yes, temperatures up just a couple of degrees over yesterday. Up north, we have 30 at Flagstaff, 43 in Sedona, 33 at the Grand Canyon, 57 right now at Gila Bend, 54 in Casa Grande. Well, yeah, you can see just a little bit of active weather here in California, a little bit of Oregon getting some as well. Everything's looking pretty good as far as clear skies are concerned. This little low pressure system causing a little bit of trouble near Albuquerque, but that high seeding in very, very nicely here for us, and that's the way things are going to be looking over the next day or so as we continue to see just a little bit of rain. We don't even have a total, but we have had a little bit of moisture over in the eastern mountains. That was earlier in the day. Up here in that northeastern corner, a little bit of something as well. Highs on the day today, we go to 60 degrees here in Phoenix, 37 in Show Low, 36 up in Flagstaff, and 62 today at Yuma. So those temperatures coming up a little bit. Even the nightly lows are coming up a little bit, although you can see, look at Mesa, 29, 31 out in Chandler, 29 at Gateway. That East Valley has that little pocket of colder air. So tonight, once again, yes, indeed, you're going to want to make sure you cover things up. 9 in Flagstaff overnight. We'll be looking at 4 at the Grand Canyon, 32 down at Gila Bend, and 30 in Casa Grande, so the desert a little chilly as well. These are your forecast highs. See things coming up a little bit. 63 at Gila Bend, 60 at Casa Grande, 34 at Show Low, 32 up at Flagstaff, and this is your day. 60 on the high, 37 on the low, 65 and 37 would be your normal high and low. Record high 81, record low at 23. Looking across the country here, well, you can see the west not too bad. We do have this storm system that has developed, a little front pushing through and kicking off more active weather. Flooding, of course, in the St. Louis area is historic at this time. And you can see more rain around the area, but look at this, Charlotte, over 2 inches. You have 1 in 39 in Atlanta. In New York, you're looking at 0.13 of an inch. And as you look at the high temperatures on the day today, now you can see that temperatures have cooled off quite a bit. 37 overnight here. We'll be looking at 62 tomorrow, lots of sunshine, 62 on Friday, and then 68 on Saturday. And of course, Friday, New Year's Day, with that 62, a few clouds. But look at by Sunday, 70 degrees. Yeah, don't even pay attention to Monday. That's a big change for you. We'll tell you about that coming up. Watch your kids around water.
I'm loving Monday. I love a good rain. I'm not too happy about that 70 on Sunday, though. I much prefer the cold. Absolutely. It's been a while since we've heard about
There will be no recall of State Superintendent of Public. There will be no recall of State Superintendent of Public Instruction Diane Douglas. The clock ran out for gathering signatures, and in the end, it wasn't even close. Fox 10's Mark Martinez tonight, live at the state capitol with reaction. When you don't pay petition gatherers, this is a tough road to hoe.
Yeah, and the leaders of this effort say that really is what made the difference here. In the end, they only got a little over 10% of the signatures that they needed to try and force a recall election of Superintendent of Public Schools Diane Douglas. Now, just a little while ago, right before 5 o'clock, the group arrived here at the state capitol building to take 2 bankers' boxes full of those signatures up to the 7th floor here where the Secretary of State's office is to present them. They, again, only got about 40,000, just a little over 40,000 signatures collected. They worked right up until the end, but again, falling far short of their effort. The organizer says, though, this is not the end. They vow to keep the spotlight on Diane Douglas and hold her accountable.
Looking back, we can say, well, we should have done this, we should have done that. I think overall, we gave it a very valiant effort.
Max Goschert is the chairman of the campaign to recall Superintendent of Public Instruction Diane Douglas. The all-volunteer effort collected approximately 40,000 voter signatures, far short of the nearly 370,000 required to force a special election.
We still talk to tens of thousands of Arizonans through all of our volunteers, and the public is now much more aware about who Superintendent Douglas is, why it's not appropriate for her to be in the superintendent spot.
The school's chief has had little to say about the recall effort. Today, her office releasing a statement saying this has not been on Superintendent Douglas's radar at all. She dedicates all her time and energy supporting Arizona's students, parents, and educators. She was elected by the people for that reason, and she will remain focused on representing the people through her efforts to give all Arizona students a world-class education. Goschert says the recall campaign struggled due to a lack of money to pay for paid circulators in the 120 days needed to collect the signatures. But he's not ruling out another attempt during Douglas's tenure.
We did very well with what we had, and I think that had there, if there is ever another recall, we could go into it knowing a lot more than what we did and do a lot better than how we did.
And the organizers say that they started this recall effort in the first place because they felt that Diane Douglas was more focused on her own power than on students and schools' performance. Reporting live in downtown Phoenix, Mark Martinez, Fox 10 News.
I'm John Hook with your Fox 10 Facebook News Update. Actor and comedian Bill Cosby charged with sexual assault. This is the first criminal case against Cosby after several allegations of sexual assault. This specific charge in connection with an incident at his home in early 2004. The TV star acknowledged under oath that he had sexual contact with the woman, but says it was consensual. Ethan Couch, known as the affluenza teen, and his mother will not be extradited back to the U.S. today. They got a temporary stay against the extradition in Mexico, where they were captured. The teen has been sought for violating probation. Ethan was given probation instead of prison time for a drunk driving accident that killed 4 people back in 2013. An effort to recall Arizona Superintendent of Public Instruction Diane Douglas has failed. The group behind the campaign was only able to get about 40,000 signatures of the 370,000 that were required. The deadline for those signatures was today. 2 people in the hospital after a fire rips through their apartment. Flames swept through the 3 units at the complex near Rural and Apache. Both victims taken to the hospital for smoke inhalation. They are expected to be okay. Let's take a look at the weekend forecast and the 10-day forecast. We're going to see a gradual increase, a little warm up to the 70s on Sunday, and then it's going to dip back into the 50s next week. That's your Fox 10 Facebook News Update. I'm John Hook.
All right, and I'm going to take you, I was trying to get us live on the scene with aerials. Let me make sure this volume's down so I don't blow out your eardrum. So this is an interesting case. Crews arrived at this scene and identified a 13-year-old male stuck in a chimney. Crews lowered a rope to the teen, asking him to wrap it around his arms, and they pulled him out. The teen is currently being evaluated at this time, and the police department is on the scene. But again, this call was in regards to a 13-year-old stuck in a chimney. A little late in the game. I get a couple days ago. Almost a week ago. Perhaps doing some Santa Claus experimentation. But we are looking at the scene of a 13-year-old stuck in a chimney. And as we leave this scene, let's jump into my teaser, what I brought you here for. Christie and Marco Rubio at each other's throats earlier today, making headlines, both teasing the other for not spending enough time. So it looks like Chopper's going somewhere else. A road rage incident, suspect fired, did hit the vehicle, did hit the victim in the arm. Okay, road rage, suspect fired, hit victim in the arm, transported with non-life-threatening injuries. Suspect stayed on scene. That's nice of them. Is currently being interviewed by the police department. This is at Happy Valley, between 67th and 75th Avenue. So Chopper's going to take us to that road rage incident now. You can take a look here at the visuals as it transfers over to that part of the world here in Phoenix. And if I get some good visuals, I will show those to you. But otherwise, we're going to jump into Christie, Marco Rubio, attacking each other today, and Rand Paul cleverly inserting himself in the drama, saying, you know what, you're both right. You both don't show up enough for work. And I think he even went as far as saying they should resign. So let's take a look at some of that video right now. Is the right video? The 30 on this.
The third youngest, I guess the third oldest, and we're so proud of him as well. And then this is Dominic, who I think one day may stand on one of these stages. You never know, right? Yeah. And of course my wife Jeanette. We've been married now over 17 years. We met back in 1991 when I think the first time I ever saw her was playing sand volleyball. And there was this really cute girl sitting in the bleachers, and we ended up actually formally meeting months later, and somehow I convinced her to marry me 7 years after that, and we now have 4 wonderful children, and we're so blessed. And we've brought a friend from home as well, Kayla Rivera, who's with us. We have so many good friends in South Florida that don't get to see snow very often, so he said, come along. And so we're glad that they are here, and I want to thank all of you for being here. I really appreciate it. I want to thank Jack. Thank you. Thanks for coming. I want to thank Jack. Jack is our campaign chairman, Senator Whitver. He is our campaign chairman. He's done a phenomenal job for us from the very beginning of this campaign, has helped us get around the entire state, and we are so grateful to him and so honored by his help and his confidence in us. And I want to thank Trey for being here, and I appreciate you very much in the words that you've said. Trey is a phenomenal public servant, as is Jack. And Trey is in this for the right reason. He's trying to make a difference. He's trying to hold people accountable. He's a strong and principled believer in the Constitution and in the liberties that it protects. And I am honored to have his support, and I'm grateful for his testimony here today about this campaign. I am here today because I want you to caucus for me here in Iowa in about 33 days. It is the most important privilege that we are given in this republic. It's the most important right, I should say, is to be able to choose our leaders. And of course, here in Iowa, you play such an extraordinary role in seeking and choosing our next president. And in 33 days, for the first time, this country will begin to pronounce itself on who will lead this nation in the aftermath of Barack Obama. And I hope to earn your support, whether it's here today, or in the questions we're about to answer, or in the days that are yet to come. I need to earn that support, and I'm going to earn that support. And I'm here today to begin this process. If you're already on our team, our hope today is to excite you to find more people that will support us. Because I can't emphasize enough how important this election is for America. This is, by far, the greatest nation in all of human history. There has never been a country like America in the history of the world. It was founded on the principle that our rights come from God, not from our government. On the principles that all human beings are equal in the eyes of our Creator. And therefore, that's why we believe that all human life is worthy of the protection of our laws. From that flowed our commitment to individual liberty, which made us the freest people in the history of the world. From that flowed free enterprise, which made us the most prosperous people in the history of the world. And the rest, as they say, is the history of this great country. A nation that for over 2 centuries has served as an inspiration to the world and the place where millions of people, including my parents, came here in search of a better life. The history of America has no parallel, before or since. We are blessed to be citizens of the single greatest nation in all of human history. And yet, despite everything America is and has done, there have always been these people in American politics who view America as a flawed country in need of radical reform. People that want government more in charge of our lives because they don't trust you to make the right decisions for yourself and for your family. They don't trust me to make the right decision for my children. People that want more government involved in our economy because they believe free enterprise is unfair. That only a handful of people make all the money and everyone else is left out. And they believe that the only way businesses can make a profit is by exploiting their workers and their customers. People that have viewed those with traditional values with great suspicion. We have a president that has said that people with traditional values, they cling to their guns and to their religion. People who believe that people with traditional values dislike everyone who isn't like them. And we've always had these people in American politics that view America as an arrogant global power that needs to be humbled and needs to atone for its past. We've always had people that believe these radical things in American politics. The problem is, one of them was elected president in 2008. And now we are seeing the results of it. A government takeover of our economy, of our healthcare system, now even trying to take over our schools with Common Core. You have an all-out assault on our constitutional rights, an obsession with getting rid of the Second Amendment and the rights that it proposes, an obsession with eroding our religious liberties, a foreign policy that is about betraying our allies, cutting deals with our enemies, weakening our military, and apologizing for America. The truth is, Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton, for that matter, they do not want to fix what is going wrong in America. They want to change America. They want to change America. So what you're left with is, instead of, as a president that's undertaken this systematic effort to redefine our country and every aspect of it. So what you have now is a society where people that hold the views that they support traditional marriage, they call you a bigot and a hater. If you're pro-life, they say that you're waging a war on women. Instead of focusing on the people that are struggling, that are working harder than they have ever worked, and making less, we have a president that's obsessed with creating more government programs, oftentimes to benefit people that refuse to work. We know that ISIS is actively recruiting people to infiltrate into our country, using the Syrian refugee crisis as a cover. If you say you want to restrict the refugees, they say that's hateful. They say that that's hateful. We have terrorists beheading people all over the world. ISIS is beheading people, crucifying people, carrying out attacks in Paris, in San Bernardino. We have a runaway risk of radical jihadists, and the president thinks the greatest risk we face is climate change. We have the gutting of our military. We are going to be left, because of these defense cuts, we are on pace to have the oldest and the smallest Navy we have had in 100 years. We are on pace to have the oldest and the smallest Air Force this country has ever had. And instead of worried about funding the men and women in uniform, we have a president that spends more time fighting for funding for Planned Parenthood, for example. This is why people are so angry. This is why in this election, the people with the most money and the most endorsements and that have been around long enough aren't winning. This is why people are so angry and frustrated at both political parties. And this isn't new. This has been building for a while. This is why in 2009, when I decided to run for the U.S. Senate, the entire Republican establishment in Washington was against me. I ignored them. I ran against the sitting governor of Florida, who at the time claimed to be a Republican, and we won. That's why right now, earlier this year, when I announced I was running for president, many of the same people came to me and said, "You can't run. It's not your turn. You need to wait." Wait for what? After 8 years of Barack Obama, this is no time for patience. This is a time for action in this election. If we get this election wrong, there may be no turning back for America. That's why this election is so important. That's why I'm running for president. That's why I'm here today in the hopes of earning your support in the Iowa caucuses. The first thing we need is a president that's in touch with what's going on in our lives. Someone who clearly understands what it is we are facing and what we are feeling. And I do. No one running understands it better than I do. Because I've lived many of the same challenges our people are now facing. I want to know, how is Hillary Clinton going to lecture me about living paycheck to paycheck? Since I happened to grow up paycheck to paycheck. Since Jeanette and I had to live paycheck to paycheck. I want to know how Hillary Clinton's going to lecture me about student loans. Since I had over $100,000 in student loans just 4 years ago. I want to know how Hillary Clinton's going to lecture me about how hard it is on parents in the 21st century. Since Jeanette and I happen to be raising 4 children in the 20th century, and by the way, we have to work harder than ever to ensure that our children grow up with the values that they teach in our church, not the values being rammed down our throat by Hollywood and the media. We need a president that understands what is going on in our country, what our people are facing, and I do, because I have faced them, and I'm facing them now. But we also need a president that knows what to do about it. A president that understands exactly what must happen for us to reclaim America, reclaim the American dream, and make this nation greater than it's ever been. And I understand it, and I will put it in place when I'm in office. It begins the first day. I'm going to place my left hand on the Bible, and I'm going to raise my right hand in the air. And I am going to swear to protect, defend, and uphold the Constitution of the United States. And unlike the president we have now, I'm going to actually mean it. I'm going to appoint judges and an attorney general that will respect and protect the constitutional rights of all Americans, especially the Second Amendment and our religious liberties. When I walk into the Oval Office, I will immediately begin the work of undoing the damage Barack Obama has done to America. On my first day in office, I am going to repeal every single one of his unconstitutional and illegal executive orders. We're going to get rid of all these crazy overreaches by the Employment Prevention Agency, the EPA. Not the Environmental Protection Agency, the Employment Prevention Agency. We are going to repeal all of their overreaches. Any work the federal government is doing on imposing Common Core, we're going to stop it. I don't understand it. We've got Republicans out there who have supported Common Core. As governors, as private citizens, I'm going to make sure Common Core will never be imposed on our local school districts. In fact, we don't even need a Department of Education. We should close it, give its important functions over to the Treasury. We don't need federal takeovers or involvement in K through 12 education. When I'm president, on my first day in office, we are going to stop any and all taxpayer funding of abortion overseas. This was a bipartisan commitment this nation made. This president has reversed. We will change it on my first day in office. On my first day in office, I will announce, as I am announcing here today, that as president, I am going to pull the full weight of the presidency behind an effort to call an Article 5 Constitutional Convention of the States. And why? Thank you. Why? I'll tell you why. Because that is the only way we're ever going to get term limits on Congress. That is the only way we're ever going to get term limits on federal judges. And that is the only way we're ever going to get a balanced budget amendment. If you think Washington and Republicans, for that matter, or Democrats are ever going to do that, they will not. That's why our founders created a mechanism in the Constitution for us to take control of our government and our future. And when I'm president, I will use the bully pulpit of the White House to push for and hopefully succeed in calling a constitutional convention of the states so we can have term limits on Congress, term limits on judges, and a balanced budget amendment for the federal government. On my first day in office, I am going to cancel Barack Obama's deal with the Ayatollah of Iran. It is a betrayal of Israel. When I'm president of the United States, we're not going to abandon free enterprise. We're going to embrace it. We're going to fix our tax code. We're going to limit and cap regulations. And we are going to produce more American energy. That means everything. Solar, wind, biofuels, oil, natural gas. We are going to do what it takes, and we're bringing jobs back to this country by re-embracing free enterprise and making America the best place in the world to create the best paying jobs of the 21st century. On Obamacare, every Republican running is against Obamacare. Every one of them. I am the only Republican running that has ever done anything about it. You see, in 2009, the big insurance companies cut a deal with Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton. Sorry, not Hillary Clinton. They probably cut a deal with her too, but Barack Obama, Nancy Pelosi, and Harry Reid. And they created a bailout fund with your money. A fund designed to bail out private insurance companies who lost money under Obamacare with taxpayer money. They did that back in 2009. In 2014, I wiped out that bailout fund. And we saved the taxpayers $2 billion. Now, there are people now saying, experts and others, that the loss of that bailout fund may ultimately lead to the collapse of Obamacare. We can only hope so. But one way or the other, when I'm president of the United States, we are getting rid of Obamacare once and for all. We are getting rid of it once and for all. Now, Trey touched on this a moment ago on immigration. I can say this to you with all the confidence in the world. There is no one running for president that understands immigration better than me. My father was an immigrant. My mother was an immigrant. My grandparents were immigrants. Jeanette's family are all immigrants. All of my neighbors are immigrants. I grew up in a community of immigrants. I still live in a community of immigrants. No one understands this issue better than I do. And as a son of immigrants, here's what I know to be true. Enforcing immigration law is not anti-immigrant. It is what sovereign countries do. Sovereign countries have a right to have immigration laws, and they have a right to enforce them. And when I'm president, we will. First of all, I understand the immigration issue has changed in just the last 2 years. It's no longer about just people coming here looking for a better life or a better job. And it can no longer be this debate about what do we need to do to get more votes in the next election. This has become a national security issue, because we know that there are terrorist groups looking to use our immigration system, legal and illegal, to get people into this country. The issue has changed, and so too must our approach. There was a time not long ago when people didn't lock their doors. Do you ever remember that, when people didn't used to lock their doors? They lock their doors now. Why? Because the world has changed. And you don't lock your doors because you hate people on the outside. You lock the doors because you love the people on the inside. When I'm President of the United States, here will be the principle that will guide us on immigration. If we don't know for 100% certainty who you are or why you're trying to come, you can't come into America. And that's going to be the principle that guides us. No, we're not going to have amnesty. If you're a criminal, you're going to be deported. The illegal executive orders are going to be repealed. Sanctuary cities that flaunt our federal immigration laws are going to lose their federal funding. We're going to enforce our borders. Border security is not rocket science. We know what it takes to do it, and we will. We need 20,000 new border agents. We need to complete the 700 miles of fencing and walls. We need at least $4 billion of new technology so we can identify when people are trying to cross illegally certain sectors of the border. We need a mandatory E-Verify system. We need an entry-exit tracking system to prevent visa overstays. If we do that, you will see illegal immigration come under control dramatically. We know that it works. When I'm president, we will do it. For the first time in 30 years, it will happen. On the issue of national security, it is the most important issue the federal government does. There are people that talk really tough on national security, how they're going to carpet bomb ISIS. They're going to kill all the terrorists. They're going to make the sands of the Middle East glow in the dark. Talk is cheap. National security is not. National security is the most important thing the federal government does, and being commander-in-chief is the most important role a president will play. And you can't kill terrorists or carpet bomb them if you don't have airplanes and you don't have bombs. And today we are gutting our military. I already described the cuts that we're facing. We won't be able to do any of that if we keep cutting this military, which is why I don't understand how there can be Republicans running for president that support these defense cuts, want them to go even deeper, when this is the most important thing we do. When I am president, we are rebuilding our military. We are going to put the resources necessary to ensure that we remain the most powerful military in the world, because when America is the strongest military in the world is a safer and a better place. We're going to take care of our veterans, by the way, and if you are a veteran, we thank you for your service, and we thank you for being here today. Our freedoms are thanks to the sacrifices that you made for us. And when I'm President of the United States, if you're not doing a good job working at the VA, you will be fired. And the benefit is going to be like the GI Bill. It will follow the veteran, not the veteran have to chase down the benefit. You will be able to take your VA benefits to any hospital, any doctor, any clinic, any provider that you want to go to instead of the VA. Because these benefits belong to the veterans, not to the bureaucracy. And by the way, when I'm president, we're going to have a real war on terror. Not a rhetorical war on terror, a real one. Which means that we are going to find terrorists wherever they are. The most powerful military in the force is going to destroy them. And if we happen to capture them alive, they are going to get a one-way ticket to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. And there we are going to find out everything they know about plots past, present, or future. Because in this war on terror, either they win or we win. There is no middle ground. And the sooner we take it seriously for what it is, the safer and better off we are going to be. I know that times are difficult. And it is true that after 7 years of Barack Obama, by the time we elect a new president, 8 years of Barack Obama, it is true that America is a great country on the road to decline. But it doesn't have to remain this way. We are not a weak people. We are not a weak nation. We just happen to have a weak president. And we're going to change that. That's why this election is so important. We can't afford 4 more years like the last 8. That's why Hillary Clinton cannot win this election. And by the way, this is why we can't afford to elect just any Republican. This election is not just a choice between two political parties. This election is a generational choice. It's a referendum on our identity as a nation and as a people. And the question before us is, do we want to remain a special country? Or do we want to be a nation in decline, the way we are right now? I'm running for president because while America owes me absolutely nothing, America owes me nothing, but I have a debt to America I'll never repay. This is not just the nation I grew up in or was raised in or was born in. America is the exceptional country that literally changed the very history of my family. Literally changed the history of my family. America did not become an exceptional country by accident. America became exceptional because for over 200 years, each generation did their part. Each generation confronted the challenges and embraced their opportunities, and they left the next generation better off than themselves. For 200 years, each generation left the next better off. Now our turn has come. Now the time has come for us to do our part. And that's why I'm here today to ask you for your vote at the caucuses. Because if I'm President of the United States, we are not going to abandon, we are going to re-embrace the principles that made America great. We are going to not just run away from, we are going to confront and solve the issues of our time, not leave them to my children and yours. We're going to embrace the opportunities of the 21st century. And if we do this together, we're not just going to save the American dream. We are going to expand it to reach more people and change more lives than ever before. And the 21st century doesn't have to be as good as the 20th century. We have a chance to make it better. We have a chance to make the 21st century a new American century. And so I hope that in the time we have today, I can earn your support. For I can know of no greater cause than what we are doing in this generation. And that is ensuring that our children inherit from us what we inherited from our parents. The single greatest nation in the history of all mankind. Now in a moment we're going to begin to take your questions. This gentleman here with a gray sweater, you have one microphone. Is there a second one? And this gentleman here has his microphone. More than happy to answer any questions you have. Trey is also here to assist if you have specific questions about the work he's doing or the issues he's been involved in. And let's get to work. So who's going to go first? Okay. Yes, sir. Nice hat. Great hat.
So like in regard to the Obamacare, is just cutting the funding, like from the on a yearly, like for a year basis, is that going to eliminate the actual legislation that was passed before, or
no.
Is there something that needs to be done besides just cutting the funding for it that we need to do?
Cutting the funding for Obamacare for 1 year will not eliminate Obamacare. A lot of the funding's already built into the law. The only way to get rid of Obamacare is to pass a law that repeals it. And when I'm president, I will sign that law. And we have a way of doing it without having to, we can get around the filibuster in the Senate. We can repeal it the same way they passed it. With this process called reconciliation, which you have no reason to know what it is and don't need to know what it is necessarily, and all this legalese that they use in Washington. There's a process for doing it, and when I'm president, we'll have a majority in the House and Senate. They will pass that. I will sign it, and Obamacare will be gone. And then every American will be given the opportunity to buy any health insurance they want from any state in the country across state lines that they want to buy. You will control your own health care money, whether it's a refundable tax credit or whether it is money from your employer that you don't pay taxes on. And you will be able to use it to pay for health insurance the way you want to pay for it. Some people want a health savings account and a catastrophic hospitalization plan. Other people want comprehensive coverage, and they can buy that from any company in America that will sell it to them. That's what we're going to have instead of Obamacare, and it's going to be better for you, and it's going to be better for America.
Thank you. As a President Marco Rubio, which I like to see, how are we going to balance approximately 19, soon to be $20 billion
trillion.
Trillion, sorry.
I wish it was 19 billion.
and rebuild our military, which we absolutely agree with you we have to do.
Yes. Well, since national defense is the most important thing the federal government does, it's the first thing we should pay for. We should fully fund our national security before we pay for anything else. It is the most important thing the federal government does. It's why we have a federal government. It is also not the cause of our national debt. The national debt that this president has built up faster than any other president in the history of this country is being driven primarily by the way Social Security and Medicare are structured for me, for my children, for future generations. Now, I am from Florida. You may not know this. It's not well known. There are a lot of people on Social Security and Medicare in Florida. One of them happens to be my mother. I don't want anything to change for her that's negative. And the good news is we don't have to change Medicare and Social Security for her. We can leave Social Security and Medicare undisrupted for her, for current retirees, for people that are about to retire in 10 years or less. But there is no way Social Security and Medicare will look the same for me or for my children as it did for her. It either goes bankrupt and doesn't exist, or we reform it. And what do I mean by reform it? Instead of retiring at 67, I may have to retire at 68. That is not an unreasonable request after what my parents did for me. If I've made a lot of money, my Social Security benefits are not going to grow as fast as they grow for someone who made less money. That is not an unreasonable reform. Medicare could very well be the option of taking your Medicare money and using it to buy a private plan that you like better. We have versions of that now called Medicare Advantage. These are not unreasonable changes, and if we make them, we can help bring our debt under control, we can save Social Security and Medicare for future generations, and we don't have to disrupt it for people that rely on it now, like my mother, or people that are about to retire. If we don't do it, the debt gets bigger, the problem gets harder to solve, and we will soon live in a country that spends more money on the interest on the debt than it does on our national security.
When you become president, which I firmly believe is going to happen, what are the chances you'll name Trey Gowdy to be your Attorney General?
Well, I certainly think if he's willing to take the demotion, he's no. Trey is phenomenal. Obviously, we're not. He would be great in anyone's cabinet. I'm not sure if that's what he wants to do, but I have tremendous respect for him, not just because of what he's done, but because he's a firm believer in the Constitution of the United States. We desperately need an Attorney General that believes in the Constitution. You know, we throw around the Constitution as just, oh, it's something everybody says. It's such a unique document. You know, almost every other country, others have constitutions, and it's largely a document in other places that says, here are the powers the government has. Our Constitution is a document of limitation. It basically says, here are the powers that belong to the people. The power belongs to people. And the people have allowed you to have a few powers. And that's it. That's the only ones you have. It's a document of limitation. We've lost perspective. And so we don't have a Justice Department now that enforces the rights of all Americans under the Constitution. We don't have judges that do that either. We have a growing number of judges in our federal judiciary that believe the Constitution is something to be manipulated. The Constitution is something to be creative with. They believe it's a living and breathing document that means different things in different eras. That's precisely the reason why they gave us a Constitution, so we wouldn't have that sort of thinking. And that's what we need to get back to. We need an Attorney General that will do that. Trey Gowdy is certainly someone that believes that. But we also need judges that will do that. And by the way, that's why we need term limits on the judiciary. There is no reason why these people should be on there for the rest of their lives. If we are to truly have co-equal branches of government, we should have term limits for the president, as we already have, for members of Congress, as we need to have, and for the judiciary. And we need to appoint people to the bench that know that their job is to interpret and apply the Constitution, not creatively manipulate it or create loopholes in it. Oh, back again. All right.
You mentioned earlier your student loan debts. I was curious, how, as president, how would you plan to fight the rising cost of higher education?
Yeah, well, there's a number of things we need to do, and I said I feel very personally committed to the cause of dealing with student loan debt. We have millions of young Americans now who aren't just inheriting a $20 trillion debt. They're inheriting thousands of dollars in student loans, often for a degree that didn't even lead to a job. So we're going to do several things. The first is we're going to make it easier to pay back the loans people already have. We're going to have an income-based repayment model, because I would rather collect $20 a month from you than nothing. If we collect nothing, not only are we collecting nothing, we're ruining your credit, which now means you can't buy a house, you can't start a business, you can't go on for the rest of your life. You know, student loans can't even be discharged in bankruptcy. So they basically are with you until you die or pay them off. The second thing we're going to do is make it easier and cheaper to acquire college credit. We should have more competency-based learning, which means if you've already learned something because you served in the military, because you learned it online, because you learned it through work experience. We should give people college credit for what they've already learned. If you serve 2 tours of duty in the Middle East, why are we making you pay to sit in a classroom and take a course on Middle Eastern affairs? And so these are the sorts of things that we're going to do on competency-based learning, is create an alternative model to traditional college that allows you to acquire that learning cheaper and faster. The third thing is we're going to have alternatives to the student loan, like the student investment plan. It allows a promising student to have their tuition paid for the same way a private investment group would invest in a small business. If you become financially successful after graduation, the investment group makes their money back with a profit. If you're not, they lost their investment. They made a bad investment. It's better than a loan because it doesn't sit on your credit report, and all the risk is on the investment group, not on the student. This is particularly useful for graduate students. And the last thing we're going to do is we're going to provide you more information. Did some lights go out over there? It's these Chinese hackers, man. They will not stop. We're going to provide you more information. When I'm President of the United States, before anyone takes out a student loan, you are going to be told, this is how much people make when they graduate from this school with a degree that you're majoring in. So our students can make an informed decision about whether the major they're pursuing is worth the money that they're borrowing. And these things, along with the competition of competency-based learning, will bring the rise of tuition under control, but more importantly, it will provide ways for students to pay back their loans or perhaps even avoid them and not find themselves in the situation millions now find themselves in, which is unable to pay back these loans that have basically taken over their lives.
This is your second last question, Senator.
Yes, I'd like to ask Mr. Gowdy, do you think there's any indictments coming down the road that might change this whole presidential campaign?
You mean of one of our people or one of their people?
One of their people.
Well, let me say this. My first answer to that's more my old job than my current job. I used to be a federal prosecutor and I was a state prosecutor. Last really good job I had was in that branch of government, the executive branch. I'm not in a position to know the answer to that. I will tell you this, I have a lot of confidence, and indeed I might be biased towards the FBI. I worked with them for 16 years. And I never once had a political conversation with a single law enforcement officer in the 16 years I was a DA. So I trust Director Comey, and he's going to do his job, and he's going to do it well. And I'm confident it'll be an outcome that all Americans, regardless of their political ideology, can have confidence in. But it is important. I get asked this at the grocery store all the time. The legislative branch has its lane, the judicial branch has its lane, and the executive branch has its lane. And one reason that I so desperately want Marco Rubio to win, but for us, for conservatives to control the executive branch, is for all the reasons that the senator just mentioned. You pick judicial nominees, including the Supreme Court. You pick the Attorney General. You pick United States attorneys. That's what the executive branch gets to do. So it's important that we win in 2016, but I trust the folks that are looking into that, and they have more information than I do.
And I would just say this, and this is separate from what Trey's doing, because I know he's doing important work and he wants to do it in a responsible way. If a member of my, I'm on the Intelligence Committee, if a member of my staff took classified documents and walked out of the building with them, they would be fired and they would be prosecuted. So just because you come from a powerful position or a rich family should not hold you above the law. In fact, I think if you do that kind of thing, you are de facto disqualified from being the Commander-in-Chief of the United States because you've proven to be reckless and irresponsible with the most sensitive and important information of our federal government. And so I personally believe that what Hillary Clinton did with her email server is something that disqualifies her to be President of the United States, no matter where she stands on the other issues, which are just as bad. But on this one, it is a disqualifier. There is no way someone that reckless or irresponsible should be the Commander-in-Chief or the President of the United States.
Last question, Senator. Hi, Senator. Piggyback on your educational reform for college and everything. The last time I heard you speak, you had a very good plan for vocational type of schooling and all that. I was wondering if you could share that with the people too, because I thought that was great, because not everybody's going to go to college. Everybody needs, we need plumbers and everything like that, and those are obviously important jobs in the country.
Yeah.
And I wish if you could share that with.
Yeah, about 30 years ago, maybe a little longer, our public schools started lying to our students. We started telling them that vocational training was for the kids that weren't smart enough to go to college. That's a lie. You know what vocational training is for? The people who want to make $50,000 at 18 years of age as a welder, as a pipe fitter, as a plumber, as an airplane mechanic, as a car technician, as a machinist. These are incredibly good paying jobs, and they, by the way, are highly complex and valued jobs. When I'm President of the United States, I will be the vocational education president. First of all, I'm going to use the White House and the bully pulpit of the presidency to celebrate these jobs. These are the jobs you build communities around. These are the jobs that serve as the backbone of entire communities in this country. It is the loss of those jobs that has destroyed cities and towns across America. When you run for president, you get to travel to some places. You drive through some of these cities, and you see they've been hollowed out because the factory closed, because the job was replaced by a machine, because it was sent to another country. We need to bring more of those jobs back, and we need trained people to do them. So the first thing I'm going to do is celebrate these jobs as just as good, if not better, than some of the 4-year and 7-year degree jobs. The second thing we're going to do is make it easier for people. When I'm President of the United States, if you are a high school student, and you are going to a high school or a school system that does not offer quality vocational training, we are going to let you use the Pell Grant to go to a trade school while you're still in high school. So what that means is these students will be able to go to high school in the morning, and then in the afternoon go to trade school. And when they graduate at 18 years of age, they will not just be handed a high school diploma. They will also receive an industry certification that says you are ready to work as a welder, as a pipe fitter, as an electrician, as a plumber, to work on cars, to work on airplanes, to work in a factory. Imagine a country where thousands of people every year are graduating from high school ready to work in these professions, what it would mean. That's what we're going to do when I'm president, because these are good jobs. We need to train more people to do it. And yes, that means we're going to have more welders and less philosophers. But that also means we're going to have more people employed. So, we did a poll last week. I have completely lost the philosopher vote because I've been saying that now for 6 months. So, fortunately, it's only 0.2% of the voting electorate. It's a joke that we haven't really polled that. But anyway, I want to thank all of you for being here today. And I want to close by saying I know you have a lot of choices. We live in a year where 1 out of 6 Republicans is running for president, so I know it's a lot of people. And look, I don't want to besmirch any of them. We have a very talented field. None of our candidates is a socialist. None of our candidates is under FBI investigation. So these are all good things. But no one running for president understands what makes America special more than I do. The fact that America is a special country is not something I saw on a documentary or even read about in a book. I lived it. My parents weren't born in this country. I was raised by people that knew America was special because they knew what life was like outside of America. You know, my father lost his mother when he was 4 days shy of his 9th birthday. At 9 years of age, he stopped going to school and started going to work, younger than Anthony. Went to work. He would work for the next 70 years of his life. He never made a lot of money. My parents never became rich, and they never became famous. And they were incredibly successful people because they came to the one place on earth where immigrants with a limited education who were willing to work hard and sacrifice could find a job that paid them enough to own a home, to retire with dignity, and to leave all 4 of their kids better off than themselves. This is what makes America special. This is what helps us stand apart from the rest of the world. I know it because I've lived it. And no one running for president understands it better. And no one running for president will fight harder every single day, not just to keep you safe, but to ensure that the country your children inherit and your grandchildren inherit is the country that our parents left for us, the greatest nation in all of human history. So I hope I've convinced you, and if not, in the weeks to come, we'll convince you to support us. If you're ready to sign up now, we have forms here, these Commit to Caucus forms. We ask you to fill them out so we can stay in touch with you, so that in about less than 5 weeks, here in Iowa, we will take the first step in replacing Barack Obama and reclaiming America for our children and our grandchildren. Thank you all, and God bless you.
now across Europe and then here in the United States. And if ISIS isn't bad enough, now we got to deal with Al-Qaeda again as they begin to reconstitute their forces in Afghanistan. And this is the President and Secretary of State who also wanted to pull troops out of Afghanistan. He's now been persuaded by events and by Congress not to do that. And I want to just remind you of something. Let's remember that we still have troops in Korea today. We still have troops in Western Europe today. Why? Because the presence of American troops in these places maintains peace and stability. And the alternative to that is much broader, more difficult war and the potential for a much greater commitment of troops. And so by keeping troops in a place after the main part of the conflict is over, we're not, doing anything other than maintaining the investment we've already made. And we made a heck of an investment in Iraq. And whether you agree with it or you disagree with it, the investment was made financially and with the lives and the blood of a lot of really good, loyal Americans. And to give that away just makes no sense to me. Any more than my father's generation, who was in the Army during Korea, wanted to give away the hard-fought peace that they sought and obtained in Korea and object not to having some troops there in the DMZ to make sure that things stay stable and calm. But this president and the Secretary of State doesn't get that, same way that they don't get a lot of things that are going on in the world right now. I heard the president the other night say that he doesn't understand Americans' anxiety about terrorism because he doesn't watch enough cable news. He legitimately said that. Then when he realized that wasn't such a smart thing to say, he then came back and said, well, what I really mean is that Americans shouldn't be as anxious as they are, and the only reason they are is because cable news covers terrorism too much. He also said that on his fight against ISIS, he doesn't really need a new strategy. He just needs a better PR approach. Sounds like the guy who's been reading from a teleprompter for 7 years, right? And the fact is that he doesn't have the first idea how to combat terrorism because he's never done it before. And the difference between me and everyone else in this race, is I've done it. I was named U.S. Attorney by President Bush on September 10th, 2001, in the state where one of those planes took off from, and in a state where more people were killed on 9/11 than any state in America other than New York. So what's that mean? Having that experience for 7 years after 9/11, fighting terrorism, investigating terrorists, prosecuting them, and putting them in jail, all of which I did in New Jersey as the chief federal prosecutor. What that means is that on my first day in office as president, when the FBI director comes in to brief me on our security risks, he's not going to have to introduce himself. I know him. We work together. He was the U.S. Attorney in Manhattan when I was the U.S. Attorney in New Jersey, right after September 11th. Jim Comey and I have known each other now for nearly 14 years. And so he's going to know when he sits down with me that I know what actionable intelligence is, that I know what it means to put men and women at risk to collect that intelligence to keep us safe, that he'll know that that president will have the back of the men and women who work for him every day who are trying to keep us safe, that I won't take every opportunity to second-guess our intelligence community and second-guess our law enforcement community, where that law enforcement person is a federal agent, a state police officer, or a local police officer. He'll know that I won't need on-the-job training for how to make sure that we keep this country safe. And the fact is that if that doesn't work, nothing else will. Let's remember the days after September 11th. No airlines were flying in this country. Stock exchange was closed. There were no sports, not professional, amateur, or youth sports. Everything that makes this country's heartbeat had stopped. And why had it stopped? Because we were scared. And the instinct of human beings when they're scared is to protect those closest to them. And so we hunkered down and we gathered close and we tried to keep each other safe. Yet in the last few weeks we've seen the Los Angeles school district closed. 650,000 students prevented from going to school because of an email threat. Then the very next week I was in New Hampshire and the Nashua school system closed for a day because of an email threat. Why are these school systems closing based on email threats? I'll tell you why. Because they no longer have confidence in the fact that the federal government will protect them. They don't believe that this president is on the job and knows how to protect them. So they're taking matters into their own hands. They trust their local school district and their local law enforcement more than they trust the federal government protecting our national security. That's got to change. And it's not going to change, by the way, by sending another United States senator to the White House. Amen. All due respect to the United States Senate. You know, it's like school. You know, you sit there, they schedule you. Here's when you have to show up. And then they tell you what to do when you get there. Here's when you vote. And it's very complicated stuff. You just have to say yes or no. And you're only one of 100 people saying yes or no. And so if it doesn't go the right way, you can always say, well, it wasn't me. You know, I voted that way. Or I voted for the bill in the subcommittee that way. And then it was amended in the full committee where I voted the other way. But then when it got to the floor, it got better, so I voted back the other way. I mean, you've heard this. You heard it in the debate the other night. You had Senator Paul, Senator Cruz, and Senator Rubio all arguing over the same bill. You remember this from Las Vegas? And they couldn't agree on how the other one had voted. I didn't think it was that complicated. There were two choices, right? Yes or no. And yet, I said to folks during the debate, if your eyes are glazing over like mine, this is what it's like to be on the floor of the United States Senate. We picked 7 years ago as a president a senator who had never run anything more than a 30-person staff. And we put him in charge of the most complex government the world has ever known. And now we sit around and wonder why the VA doesn't work. We sit around and wonder why our national defenses are compromised. We sit around and wonder why we got stuck with Obamacare that's ruining our health care system. We wonder why Social Security is getting ready to go bankrupt and why the disability insurance plan has already been compromised. We wonder why he can't keep us safe. We shouldn't wonder. He never had to do it before. And we expected him to do it. He does well what he's done before, which is read a teleprompter and give a good speech and think that that's what changes the world. And we know that what changes the world is convictions, hard work, and the experience to turn those convictions into results. That's what does it. That's what's always done it. That's what does it in your business. That's what does it in your home. And that's what will do it in government. So let us not make the same mistake again. Let us not pick another United States senator to be the next president of the United States. We've seen this movie. We're living it right now. And we don't need to live it again. And the fact is that for the last 13 years, my job has been to make decisions and implement them. 7 years as the U.S. Attorney, in the post-9/11 era, in one of the most dangerous places in our country, in the New York, New Jersey metropolitan area, and 6 years as governor of what I lovingly call an unruly state. A Democratic legislature every minute of every day of my governorship. And believe me, they don't wake up every morning saying, geez, how can we make the governor happy today? All right? Dealing with huge fiscal crisis that I inherited, an $11 billion deficit on a $29 billion budget, inheriting the most highly taxed state in America, and now having vetoed more tax increases than any governor in American history, and dealing with the second worst natural disaster that this country has ever seen in Hurricane Sandy, where we lost 365,000 homes in 24 hours. and rebuilding that state to return people's lives back to normal. You can't get any of that experience in the United States Senate. And we're not looking to put somebody in the chair in the Oval Office once again who'll sit there the first day, spin around in the chair and say, gee whiz, isn't it great to be president? All right? You can picture it. We need somebody who sits in that chair the first day and says, I know what this is about. Bring it on. Let's get to work. Let's start solving problems. Let's start making decisions and implementing them and making it happen. And the only way you know how to do that is if you've done it. There's going to be no owner's manual in the center top drawer of the desk in the Oval Office. There's going to be no one who's going to be able to teach you that. And so I'm running for President of the United States because I believe I'm ready to be President of the United States. And I'm running for President because I know in my heart that all the challenges we have in America are still outweighed by the opportunities. But we just have to have the strength and the resolve to deal with both. Take on the challenges and take advantage of the opportunities. None of us would trade places with anybody in the world. There's no place else we'd rather live. There's no more valuable and treasured document in the world than an American passport. I don't want to be anywhere else in the world, but I want us to be everything that we can be. And that's going to take hard work. Because after 7 years of this guy and the crew he brought to Washington, who have run up as much debt as all of his predecessors combined, Barack Obama has run up as much debt as every president from George Washington to George W. Bush combined. It is time for us to take back our government and put it in the hands of somebody who actually has an idea of what it's like to make decisions. So, I'm going to stop there and let you all ask me questions on whatever you want to ask me about. There's only one rule when I do town halls in Iowa. Just to let you know, there are 4 rules when I do town halls in New Jersey. But that's because it's New Jersey. They need 4 rules. You all only need 1 rule. That is, you raise your hand and I call on you, ask me whatever question you want. This is not like the other town hall meetings you may have heard about here in Iowa, where you have to write down your question beforehand, submit it in writing to the staff. The staff reviews it and then decides if it's a question I'd like to answer, then gives me the ones I like and leaves the ones I don't like, on the floor. Now, it would be wrong of me to tell you who does town hall meetings like that. Be indiscreet to give that person's name. However, her initials are Hillary Rodham Clinton. All right? So we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. We will take questions from you on whatever you like. So raise your hands, and we don't need any microphones in here for you. I'm sure you all can be heard. Yes, sir.
Governor, I'm Ray Willits from Marshall County here, and a 2-part question. Of all the hot-button issues in this campaign and your personal convictions, what are things you absolutely will not compromise on? And please give an example of something where you would compromise in the bipartisan spirit.
Sure. First, I will not raise taxes on the American people. This president has done plenty of that, and I said that 6 years ago when I ran for governor of New Jersey, and they all said, it's now 7 years ago that I ran for governor of New Jersey, and they all said, there's no way he'll ever be able to keep that promise. And 7 years later, we haven't had a tax increase, and as I said earlier, we have vetoed more tax increases than any governor in American history. Now, I can't do that on my own. I have to thank my liberal Democratic legislature for sending me so many tax increases to veto. But I will not raise taxes on the American people because we're overtaxed already. We need a tax simplification. We need a lowering of rates. We need to get rid of these special interest loopholes and deductions. The only 2 I would keep are the home mortgage interest deduction and the charitable contribution deduction. Other than that, everything else has got to go, and in return, we will lower your rates down to 28% on the top end, which is where it was when Reagan did tax reform in the mid-'80s, and 8% on the low end. And you'll be able to do your taxes in 15 minutes. Here's how much you made. Here's how much your home mortgage interest was. Deduct that. Deduct how much you donated to charity. Multiply times the brackets. Send your check and be done. Not only will it make your life easier, but how about this? What we'll also do is allow me to fire a whole bunch of IRS agents, which will be a lot of fun. I'll give you an example of something I won't compromise on, that I would compromise on. We have to find a way in this country to deal with entitlement reform. 71 cents of every dollar. 71 cents of every dollar that we now spend in the federal budget are on entitlements and debt service. To give you a comparison, in 1960, when John Kennedy was elected president, we spent 26 cents of every dollar on entitlements and debt service. We've almost completely reversed that now. And we spend 71 cents of every dollar on entitlements and debt service. I'm the only candidate who put forward an entitlement reform plan. The only one still. I put it forward in April. I've been waiting for somebody else to come in with something else. No one wants to because it's too hard. Because you got to tell people things they don't want to hear. But when they asked Willie Sutton why he robbed banks, he said, because that's where the money is. You want to straighten out the deficit and debt problem in this country? Don't argue over the 29 cents. Start by arguing over the 71 cents. Now, we're going to have to build consensus on that. I have a plan. I think my plan works. My plan saves over $1 trillion over 10 years. And it's on chrischristie.com. There's 12 points to it. It's been scored by the Congressional Budget Office. And I think it's still a good plan. But it's such a difficult issue that you got to be willing to reach across the aisle and get consensus from other folks as well. And that may mean you have to change some of your plan to be able to get an agreement. But that's a place where I would compromise with other Republicans and with Democrats to try to get something done, because the problem is too big to just kick the can down the road. Social Security will be insolvent in 8 years. 8. It's not the next generation's problem. It's ours. And we've got to fix it. And so when a problem is that desperate and that severe, you got to be willing to try to make some compromises in order to get people onto your side, in order to get something done. And I'm the only candidate in this race that's had experience doing that. Because every one of the other governors who was running or is still running had a Republican legislature. I would give my left arm for 1 week. 1 week of a Republican legislature. I'd never let them sleep. We'd do so much in 1 week they wouldn't know what hit them. But I don't have that. I've had a Democratic legislature, and that means I've had to compromise. But think about the things we've gotten done in New Jersey. We capped property taxes. We reformed teacher tenure for the first time in 100 years. We passed pension and health benefit reform that's going to save our taxpayers $130 billion over the next 30 years. We balanced 6 budgets in a row without raising taxes. Our state employment is down 15% from where it was when I started as governor. And we did that without laying anybody off, all through attrition and then finding absolute efficiencies. I did all that with a Democratic legislature. They didn't want to do any of it. But we found ways to compromise and work together to get things done. We need to bring that spirit back to Washington on the things that need to be fixed. But if they come to me with a big tax increase, I'm not signing it. And they need to know that right from the beginning, because people in this country pay too much in taxes as it is already. And we got to show them that we can actually efficiently and effectively spend the money they already send us before we start asking anybody for more. So that would be 2 examples I give you. It's a good question. The first time I ever got asked that. That's really good. Yes, sir, right here.
My name is Greg Brown from Marshalltown, and one of the things that has concerned me with the president is his liberal use of the executive order to get around the law of the land. And although there's been many of them, I'm wondering if you would comment as to what you would do on a few of them. One is he's implementing parts of the DREAM Act by refusing to prosecute sanctuary cities, to go after illegal aliens. He's gutted the controls that Newt Gingrich put in back in the 90s for welfare program with the requirement for work.
Yeah, the work requirement, yep.
He just unilaterally took care of that. He's invading all of our lives with control of energy through the, he did not pass the carbon tax, but he's in the process of, through EPA.
Yep, the clean power thing, yep.
How are you going to deal with this?
Well, let me deal with it in a macro sense, and I'll deal with the couple of examples that you gave. The first job of the lawyers that I hire during the transition, who will come and be my lawyers at the White House, will be to go through each and every executive order, to give me piles of them each week, and say, Mr. President-elect, do we keep these or get rid of them? And give me a book every week to go through and say, yes, no. And so that when I get into the White House on the first day, I will sign an omnibus executive order that repeals all the ones that I think are extra-constitutional, illegal, or an inappropriate use of executive authority. So we'll do that on the first day, and we'll work through the transition on that. Some of the specific ones you talk about are extraordinary, and what they set up is a sense of lawlessness in this country. Right? So he doesn't like the immigration laws. So he says you can be a sanctuary city. You can refuse to enforce the federal immigration laws. I took the oath of office. I took an oath that, among other things, required me to say that I shall faithfully enforce the laws of the state of New Jersey. It didn't say, I shall faithfully enforce the laws that I like. I got to enforce all the laws. That's the way it works. And if you don't like the laws, you got to go to Congress and get them changed. Or in my case, go to the legislature and get them changed. So, for instance, sanctuary cities, in my view, all of that executive order garbage would be revoked, and I would make it very clear. I'd go to Congress and ask them to authorize the executive branch to withhold federal aid from any city that was unwilling to cooperate with us in enforcing federal immigration law. He's done this on Obamacare, as you know, by delaying certain parts of it that were unpopular because he wanted to delay them, implementing certain things, charging certain fees, all by executive order. That all needs to go. And when you look at what he's done in terms of drugs in this country, he has turned the other way, despite the fact that marijuana is a prohibited drug in this country. He has turned the other way for states like Washington and Oregon and Colorado to make recreational use of marijuana legal. One of the debates was in Boulder, Colorado. And I said during that debate to the folks in Colorado, I said, listen, get high now. Because when I'm president of the United States, you're not going to be able to do it anymore.
I just wanted to say hi to
law needs to
Larry.
be enforced.
Thank you so much for your positive
and
feedback.
That's
we appreciate
what we need to do. You don't like the laws, you want to change the laws, then use the process that's available to us to change the laws.
Hi, Larry.
Go to the people who the citizens elected in the Congress, get the law changed, and do it that way. But do not do it by extra-constitutional, illegal executive orders. This president is now acting in his last year and a half in office like a petulant child. He lost the Congress, right? He lost the Congress. He can't get done what he wants to get done, so now he's just going to do it by executive order. It's wrong. And so that's the way I would deal with it. Here's what you need to know about my presidency. It'll be about enforcing the law. I'm a prosecutor. I'm keen on enforcing the law. And the fact is, I take an oath. And the oath is to support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the laws of the United States. And that's exactly what I'll do, even if I don't like the laws. That's what you got to do. An oath matters. So, I'll give you one example in New Jersey. We have a medical marijuana law in New Jersey that was signed into effect at 3 a.m. on the day I was sworn into office. My last gift from my predecessor, who I defeated for his reelection. And I didn't agree with the law. It was very broadly written, but I have to enforce it. Legislature won't change it. I've tried to enforce it as narrowly as I could and make it a real medical program, but I wouldn't have chosen to have that program in my state. But it got passed by the legislature and signed by the man who was the governor at the time. And I have a Democratic legislature that doesn't want to change it. So what am I, it would be wrong for me, even though I disagree with it, to not enforce it. I'm not a king. I'm not a dictator. I'm an elected governor, and I have to follow the law. And that's what this president should do, and that's what I'll do when I am president. Yes. Yes, sir.
My name's Mike Miller. I live here in Marshtown.
Hey, Mike.
Hi. I've always liked what you've had to say, and I like how you say it, too. But I want to talk about caucus night. How do we need to do? I'd like to caucus for you. How
Good.
well do you need to do on caucus night on the road to victory?
Well, first off, as well as possible. So let's start with that, right? We don't want to restrict ourselves. But listen, I'll have a much better handle on that in about 2 weeks. You all decide pretty late. And I don't want to start making predictions that are, unattainable. But what I will say is that you shouldn't be listening to any pundits or polls or talking heads about this stuff. This is too important. And you have too big a field to cull through. And you shouldn't say, well, geez, you know, if I caucus for this guy or that guy, my vote is either a sure winner or a certain loser. What I need to do in Iowa and New Hampshire is do well in both places. Because the field's so big, if you don't do well in both places, you probably are going to have a hard time staying in the race. This race is going to get down to like 4 or 5 people at the most by the time we get done with New Hampshire. That's my prediction. We're down to 12 now from 17, and we'll be down to 4 or 5 by that time. And I want you to caucus for me because you believe I'm going to be the best president and the best person to take on Hillary Clinton. Now, this is where I think we've begun to lose focus a little bit, and what I've tried to continue to focus back on in the debates. You'll notice in my performance in debates, I'm not attacking other Republicans. I'm talking about her. Because, man, you don't beat her, you don't get to be president. And there's no silver medals in this one, okay? You get to be the Republican nominee, and you lose the general election. They don't give you a silver medal. It's not like you're first runner-up in the Miss America pageant, okay? If Miss America can't serve, you don't get to come in, right? This is not the way it works. And so, from my perspective, what I want in Iowa is for people who want a strong, direct, experienced hand in the Oval Office. I'm the right guy. And if you believe in those things, then caucus for me. And when you go there that night, convince other people who may walk in. That's one of the great things about your system. You can convince other people to change their mind that night. You walk in and you're strong enough for the person you believe in, you can convince them. And people who have changed their minds and will change their minds. And so, you know, I think I'm going to do well here. I've been coming to Iowa since 2010. I like you. I've been coming here since 2010 for Governor Branstad, for members of the Republican members of the legislature, for Congressman King, for Senator Ernst, for Senator Grassley. I've raised a lot of money here for a lot of good Iowa Republicans. And you've gotten to know me. What you see is what you get. There are going to be no surprises. And no one's been more tested than me. I mean, you know, the media's had a lot of fun with me. And here I am, still standing and still working forward. That's the kind of person you want on the stage against Hillary Clinton next September. Because I've used this analogy, okay? It's like when you drive by a car dealership and you see a bright, new, shiny truck. Right? And you see that truck and you go, man, I'd love to have that truck. It's bright, it's new, it's shiny. It's got all new kinds of bells and whistles inside of it. It smells really great. And you go up and you decide, okay, I'm going to buy that truck. And you get the bright, newest, shiniest truck. And you drive it home. And you park it in front of the house and then it starts to rain. And I mean, it rains like crazy. It's hard rain and it's going on for a long time. And as you're watching out the window, the shine starts to come off that truck a little bit. And it's raining harder and harder. And then finally the rain stops and you need to get out. So you go out there and you get into that brand new truck. And what else does that rain create? That rain created a lot of mud. And so you start up that truck and you start to drive it and it won't get out of the mud. And the tires are spinning and you're shifting it back and forth and using the brake and using the gas. You're trying to get out and you can't get out of the mud. And the only thing you're thinking at that point is, damn, man, where's my old truck? It was a little dinged up and a little scratched and it was a little older. But, man, that truck always got me out of the mud. That truck knew how to get out of the mud. I'm the old truck in this race, everybody. Okay? There's some other new, shinier trucks. No doubt about it. I remember that. I used to be the new, shiny truck years ago. I remember what it's like to be the new, shiny truck. I'd rather be the old truck. Because the old truck knows how to get you out of the mud. And if you're thinking about what next September is going to be like, when you're on that stage against Hillary Clinton, you think the mud's bad in that rainstorm. You wait till the mud she starts throwing at the Republican next September. You got to be used to getting out of the mud when you're running against Hillary Rodham Clinton. It can't be your first time in the mud. You can't be the new truck. See, because you got to get out of that mud and you got to run her right over. And that's exactly what I will do. And you can start it here on caucus night. So, man, I don't know whether I have to win or it's second place or third place or fourth place. I don't know. How many people are going to be left by then? Are more people going to drop out? I don't know. When I come back here after the first day in the race, I'll give you a prediction. Come back to the next town hall meeting, I'll give you a prediction. But right now, I want to see how many people we're going to have and who they are. And then I'll be able to give you a good prediction about what we need to do. But regardless of any of that, if you believe in me, if you believe in the old truck, caucus for the old truck. The old truck deserves your respect. The old truck got you out of the mud a lot. A lot of dings and scratches and a couple of flat tires here and there. But man, that old truck just kept going. Don't go with the truck that's never been in the mud. Go with the truck that's never been in the mud. It might work. But if it doesn't, we wind up with Hillary Clinton. We don't want to do that. Yes, sir.
What would you do about this VA mess?
I would do two things immediately about the VA mess. We promised our veterans health care for the rest of their lives if they served our country loyally and ably. So every veteran has a veteran's card in this country, should be able to go to any doctor or any hospital they want and get the health care they need when they need it, and we should pay for it. We messed this thing up, and we're holding them accountable for it. It's not right. Second thing is we can't get rid of the VA system. There's too much expertise in that VA system for things that we really need, that these men and women come back from combat really needing. Everything from prosthetics to help with mental health problems, PTSD and the like. So the second thing I would do is to go out and to recruit the best hospital executive in America, in the private sector, and say to them, ma'am, sir, your country needs you. Your president needs you for the next 2 years. Come in and fix this VA. Because the VA is really now a hospital system. And with all due respect to the generals and the admirals, we don't need another general or admiral running a hospital system. I need a hospital executive to run a hospital system to make it work the right way. So that's the two things I would do. One is to take care of the short-term problem, which is get veterans the health care they need and have them not wait weeks and months to get it, and let them get it where they need to get it. And then second, fix the system over the long haul over the next couple of years and get a trained, accomplished professional to come in and do it. And I think if I went to one of those folks and on behalf of the veterans of this country as Commander-in-Chief asked them for their service, that they would do it.
It seems so bad that they put a new guy in charge, but nobody still is held accountable.
Yeah, and that's part of the problem with this president. You know, it's not all the president's fault, but it becomes his fault when he doesn't hold the people accountable whose fault it is. Right? So I'm not saying the president should have figured out exactly what to do and how to fix it. It's a big government. But he put some people in charge. He put them in charge. And those people failed. Well, then they have to be fired. Right? Because if this were a private business, man, your rear end would hit the curb faster than you could think if this kind of disaster happened. People lying, denying people coverage, altering records, all the awful stuff that happened. And if you listen to Mrs. Clinton, she says there's not really a crisis at the VA. See, I've started now to call her, I'm not calling her Secretary Clinton anymore. I call her Secretary Happy Talk. Right? This is Secretary Happy Talk. She said, we're right exactly where we need to be on ISIS. She said there's no crisis in the VA. The slogan for this campaign should be, do you believe me or your lying eyes? Right? That's Secretary Happy Talk, and we can't have any more of that. We need people who are telling people the truth, even when it's an ugly truth. You know, I trust the American people. You hear the truth, even if you don't like it, you can handle it. But when we hide the truth from you, that's when it becomes a big problem, because then we lose your trust. And if we lose your trust, then we have no ability to govern at all. So that's what I would do with the VA, sir, and I think it's important. Yes, ma'am. Well, I have a different solution. I have a different solution for you. Yeah, well, no. I mean, listen. Here's the different solution. We should not disarm the Secret Service. As much as we disagree with the president, we do not want harm to come to him. That's not who we are. But on the issue of Second Amendment, we need to be really clear. The problem of gun violence in America is perpetrated by criminals. Now, I know this as a prosecutor. The gun violence that we have going on across this country, the overwhelming majority of it is done by people who have no legal right to own a gun to begin with. They're felons. And we have a law in this country that felons are not allowed to possess a firearm. Well, how about we enforce that? Rather than worrying about, right, going after folks who are citizens who have not broken the law and who want to have a firearm to protect themselves, to hunt, or just for collection purposes, why are we going after those folks rather than going after the criminals? We need to go much more aggressively after the criminals in this country because, by the way, they don't go through a background check to buy a gun. They don't honor a waiting period to get a gun. They buy them on the black market. They scrape off the serial numbers. They use it to commit a crime, and then they dump it and buy another one. Those are the folks we need to go after. And the second piece of this is that when they talk about these mass shootings that have happened in our country, you think about it. Almost every one of them involves someone who is deeply mentally ill. And you always hear those interviews afterwards, right, where the family or the neighbors or the coworkers go, oh, yeah, we knew he was a problem. Well, we need to get people to start speaking up. And we need to tell them that you have to be part of the solution. And we have to empower our physicians and those families to involuntarily commit those people who are speaking out violently or are non-compliant with their medication that can help to deal with their mental illness. It is a mental illness. It's not something to be punished for, but you need to be treated. And if you're not treated, you become a danger to us and to yourself. Because remember, with almost every one of these mass shootings, they end with the shooter committing suicide. This person is not only a threat to us, they're a threat to themselves. And if we value life, which I do, then we need to be more aggressive in treating our mental health issues. This is not about more laws. This is about enforcing the laws we already have and using humane means to get people the treatment they need so they don't act out and commit these awful, awful acts. I can't for a moment justify or understand the young man who killed all those children in Sandy Hook, Connecticut. And none of us as parents can understand, unless we've been through it ourselves, how those parents must feel at the loss of a child that they sent off to school in that senseless way. But we are not going to make those folks safer by taking guns away from law-abiding citizens. And it may make us feel good, but it doesn't work. And I want to do things that actually work. You have a follow-up. Well, bless you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
I was just going to say, I had a chat online with Enoch Carpenter. I guess he's supporting Rick Santorum, yeah. But anyway, not you. But anyway, so he was asking me questions. Have you seen such and such? And then what would you, like, I can go to websites I can go to hear whatever trash.
Yeah, well, there are plenty of those out there.
Which I don't read them, but he did have questions, or one thing that he was saying.
Well, if he's got a question, man, he's got to show up. Right? I'm not going to take online questions from some guy who's supporting Rick Santorum. Tell him he's more than welcome. I'll be in Waukee tonight. Send this back to him. You have an online chat? Send it back to him. Say, Governor Christie is personally inviting you to his town hall meeting tonight in Waukee. What place are we at in Waukee tonight? Murphy's, right? Where's my staff? Have they all left? They all abandoned me? Where are we tonight? Mickey's. All right, they're at the bar. Thank you. If you worked for me, you'd be drinking too. So tell him we're at Mickey's tonight in Waukee. I'll answer his question there, but I'm going to answer this question here. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Marcia Fricke, and I would like to know what your thoughts are on this federal funding for Planned Parenthood.
Well, I have a record on this in New Jersey. In 2010, I vetoed Planned Parenthood funding in New Jersey, and I've vetoed it 7 times since. We provide plenty of medical care in New Jersey through federally qualified health clinics to men and women who need that care in New Jersey. Everything from women's health issues, mammograms, pap smears, all of that, through to everything that a man needs as well, and everything in between. And we pay a lot of money for that. So one, it makes no fiscal sense to be also funding Planned Parenthood. Second, I don't agree with what Planned Parenthood does, and I don't believe taxpayers should be forced to fund an organization like that. Here's the thing. They also don't tell the truth. You know, when they make this fight, they say, well, if you cancel Planned Parenthood funding, you'll deny women mammograms. Well, until the CEO of Planned Parenthood actually had to be put under oath before Congress and asked, and then she told the truth, which is that Planned Parenthood nowhere in this country provides mammograms to one woman. They refer them to other places. You know one of the places they refer them to? Federally qualified health clinics who have the equipment and the wherewithal to be able to do these things. So this makes no sense from a fiscal perspective, and in my view, it makes no sense to ask the American people to fund it. And so you get a president who will do exactly what I did as governor. The only reason it hasn't happened now is that the president won't let it happen, right? So you need a president who supports this, and you shouldn't just go with someone who says they support it. You look at my record. 8 times it's been put in front of me, 8 times I've vetoed it in 6 years. And if it comes in the budget again this year, I'll veto it again. They put it every year, and then every once in a while, they send me a supplemental bill to try to slip it by me. But I read everything, so they can't slip it by me. So that's my record on Planned Parenthood funding. It's what I believe, and it's what I do as president. Yes, sir.
A lot of businesses have eliminated or reduced their defined benefit programs. Federal employees get a fantastic defined benefit program. I know that you did some things in New Jersey with the state employees. What would you do with federal employees to try and make that more like everyday folks in America?
Well, federal employees now no longer get defined benefit program on pension. They get defined contribution. So they have a 401k program. President Reagan changed that in the mid-1980s. So I was a federal employee for 7 years as the U.S. attorney. I contributed money to my account. They matched, I think it was up to 3% of what I contributed. And then when I left federal employee, I took that money with me and I put it into a 401k account with the state of New Jersey when I was elected governor. So no longer, if you're employed, I believe it's after 1985 in the federal government, you no longer get a pension. Pre-1985, if your employment started, you get one, but post-1985, so we're now 30 years, that people, new employees from 1985 forward, do not get federal pensions any longer, absent the military, of course. The military is an exception, but civilian employees in the federal employee do no longer get it. We should be going to that all over the country. Now, we still have defined benefit in my state. Now, we've changed it by increasing the contribution that employees have to make, by increasing the retirement age, by increasing the penalty for early retirement, and by ending cost of living adjustments to try to bring some stability to the system. But we need eventually to move to a defined contribution system in all the states because it's bankrupting us. 40 of the 50 states have severe state pension problems because the states have overpromised what they can deliver to people. Let me give you one example of what happens in my state. And this is after I put reforms in, which increased how much they contribute to their pension and, for the first time, required they contribute to their premiums for their health care. Before I became governor, state and local employees, government employees in New Jersey, paid nothing for their health care. Their health insurance was free, paid for by the citizens of the state. They now have to pay up to 35% of their premium on a sliding scale based upon how much you make. But that includes even that reform. The average teacher in New Jersey who works for 30 years puts in $126,000 into both their pension and for payment of their health care. Total over 30 years, $126,000. You know what the benefit is at the end? $2.4 million. Now, listen, you don't have to be a math major to figure out that ain't going to last. It's not going to last. And so the federal government has gotten control of this by ending defined benefit plans for their employees, with the exception of the military. But we need to do it state by state because it's going to bankrupt our states. You see what it's doing to your neighbor in Illinois. They're tied in knots. They can't do anything. And it's hurting other states as well, including mine. Even after the reforms I made, we need to do more. And we need to move towards a defined contribution plan. As president, I think what you need to do is to talk to the state's governors and legislatures about the fact that this is not going to work. And they need to be stepping up and fixing the problems in their state. And what you need to assure them as president is, I'm not going to bail you out. If you don't figure this out and fix it, and it is fixable, do not come to the federal government and look for a bailout, because we're not going to bail you out. And I think if you make that clear, we'll get some people who get some religion. Real quick. Yes, sir.
What's your stance on renewable energy? Iowa is one of the top producers of ethanol, biodiesel, and wind energy in the nation. Do you support it? Will you support it?
I do and I will. And I'll tell you about my record to show you that I do. If you go out tonight, you go out to a restaurant or a bar and you sat next to somebody at the bar, use this question on them. You'll drink free all night. Say to them, who are the top 3 solar energy producing states in America? They'll get the first 2, Arizona, California. Figure that out, it's common sense. Number 3 is where you're going to win all your drinks tonight, New Jersey. New Jersey is the 3rd largest producer of solar energy in America. Now, why? Because we worked in conjunction with the private sector to make it affordable. And so folks are using it. And because our state is about that big, with 8.9 million people stuffed into that sausage, okay? We're the most densely populated state in America. We couldn't have the wind turbines you have. If we had wind turbines on land in New Jersey, there wouldn't just be dead birds, there'd be dead people. Right? We're too closely packed in and too close together, not enough land to do it. But solar is compact technology. You can put it on the roof of your house. You can put it on the roof of your factory. You can put it on the roof of the shopping mall. You can put it on the roof of your parking garage or on your office building. And people are doing that all across New Jersey. And we've now become the 3rd largest solar producing state. My point in telling you that is that I think each state should be able to decide for themselves what works best for them. Right? So here in Iowa, wind turbines work. Biofuels and ethanol work because of the resources that you have in your state and the land mass that you have. The combination of the two make that work. Great. That works for Iowa. I encourage it. New Jersey wants to do solar. Great. Massachusetts wants to do offshore wind. If they can make it work and make it affordable, go ahead and do it. But I think renewable is really important. And on the issue of ethanol and biofuels, we have invested too much as a country in this technology to walk away from it. It makes no sense. You know, you could agree or disagree, and plenty do about this issue, but I'm clear on it. We've invested too much in it. We need a full portfolio of options. And if this works here, and it works for a good part of the rest of the country too, we should continue to do it. But each state should have the right to add to that portfolio for what works for them. So if solar works, great. Wind works, good. Biofuels, great. I don't have a preference. I'm agnostic on it. What I'm not agnostic on is it affordable? I do not want to see huge government subsidies going to new technologies. We got to get the private sector to work with us because they'll work with us if there's a profit to be made. We're still capitalists, the last time I checked. Well, this president's trying hard to make us not capitalists, but we're still capitalists. I want people to make money. And if we can figure out a way to make it affordable, as we've made it in New Jersey, and it makes money, that's great. And so that's what I would do on renewables. Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
With the Republicans who are running around, one of the things we're doing right now is beating up at each other, and we're allowing Mrs. Clinton to be in the meeting right now.
Yep.
Are we going to change that? How can we change that? We're beating up at each other.
Well, I'm not, and I'm not going to, but we're going to, listen, that'll end when we get a nominee. Sure. Yeah, listen, but that's part of having 17 people in the race, right? I mean, we're all so pent up with anger and frustration over this president that you got 17 candidates starting this thing. We're now down to 12. It's going to get down to 4 or 5, and then you'll have a little more tussling. Because, man, when you get down to the final 4, you can smell it then. And you want to win. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to want to win too. I get down to the Final Four, right? So we're going to have a little more tussling, but don't worry about that. That's okay.
We still have to come together at some point.
We will, and that's going to be the obligation of the nominee. The nominee is going to have to figure out, like in response to that gentleman's question before, when you're governing. Also, as a politician, you got to figure out how to reach out. That's why, I can't tell you how many people say to me, because, Mr. Trump had a number of very interesting things to say about me the other night. And the next morning, he had all the press around me saying, so what's your response? I don't know if you saw it. What I said was, it appears that Donald lost the Christmas spirit in 3 days. But I wish he and Melania and their family a Happy New Year. Okay? I'm not going to get into this. I'm not going to get into it. I'm not going to get into this tit for tat, back and forth. If I disagree with someone on an issue, I'll say it. But I'm not going to get into this name-calling, craziness. We deserve better than that as a party, and we need better than that as a country. So, I think what we'll do, it's going to be the obligation of the nominee to bring everybody together after it's over. And if you haven't been beating the bejesus out of everybody, you got a better chance of being able to do that, right? Hadn't said bad things about everybody, you got a better chance of bringing everybody together. So I'm working, and I'm from New Jersey, so I want to say lots of bad things, all right? I'm working real hard at this. But my mind is focused on one thing, and that's beating Hillary Clinton and becoming the 45th president of the United States. That's what I care about. That's what we'll try to do. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Going to Christie. I'm from New Jersey.
All right. What town?
Exit 12 on the Turnpike.
There you go, baby. Exit 12.
Yeah.
Beautiful Middlesex County.
35 years, and as a parent of a major in the Green Berets, I'm concerned that he has the best equipment for his men available. And I know that since 2003, we've been worried every night that he's gone because he doesn't have the best equipment.
Yep.
I don't know how you would address the issue of giving our soldiers the best possible equipment that money can buy.
Well, here's the thing. If you're commander-in-chief of the military and you're going to ask our men and women to go into harm's way, you can't ask them to do that in good conscience and not have them fully equipped and ready to go. And right now we have the smallest army we've had since 1940. We have the smallest Navy we've had since World War I. And the rest of the world has taken note of that. And it's not just the hardware issues, it's also a staffing issue. We're not signing people back up.
And it looks like that's all of the speech that I have. That's where my video cuts off. I'm sorry. I cannot bring you a dramatic conclusion. Guess what? It's 9:06, which means I've stayed with you 6 minutes in overtime. That is a whole lot of love from me to you. I'm going to go ahead and close down now. Thanks so much for watching Fox 10 News Now. We're on Monday through Friday, typically 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., although we have one of our regular hosts off. So we are doing 10 to 9 this week. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow. I will be with you New Year's Eve, and hopefully I'll be able to bring you the ball dropping. And that will be our big climax for tomorrow evening. So thanks so much for watching Fox 10 News Now. See you tomorrow.